So first off, we are Collyless, and she's not going to be on the show today. Also, we're going to talk about the escalation of force.
So going only one step above what the other person is using?
Okay, so the courts are now saying that they want you to kind of stay on equal level.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, because if someone slaps me on the butt, I'm not just going to reach over and slap them on the butt back.
Okay, all right, wait. Let's save it for the actual podcast, okay?
Welcome to the Impact Defense Podcast. We are dedicated to giving you the information that you need to help keep you safe. Now let's join our hosts, Brian, Jada, and Kylie.
All right, guys, so with Kylie not here, we are not going to have any kind of special funny voice for an ad portion or anything like that. Sorry, I don't do voices. All right, we have a new sponsor for the podcast. It is faithandfreedomclothing.com. Check them out. If you use the coupon code Impact Defense, it will get you 25% off. But I'm going to let you in on a really quick little secret. First time you go there, don't use that coupon code, because the first time you go there, they're going to give you 40% off of your first purchase. But every time after that, when you go over there and check out their designs, you get 25% off with the use of Impact Defense every time.
Awesome. And now for the news portion of our podcast with your host, me. So, This story happened, from what I understand, this past week in Rio de Janeiro on the beach. So imagine that you're sitting on the beach, calmly enjoying your vacation, getting out of the chaos of the city, when you look over and see two men kind of arguing. One throws a swing at the other, there's a little bit of a hustle. And then one picks up a Cayman alligator and uses it to defend himself against the other, and is now reaching forward and trying to let the Cayman bite the other person, when a lifeguard swoops in, shoves them away from each other, and the alligator is dropped. Thankfully, the alligator was rescued by some firemen, and it was rehabilitated and released back into the wild, but I'm sure there is some mental trauma there.
Okay, wait, first off, if Steve Irwin hadn't already passed away, that would have been my first question if it was him. Oh, gosh, that is hilarious. So is it like his cousin, brother?
Oh, I have no idea.
What is a small one?
How would he pick it up if it weren't a small one?
Yeah, I know. I mean... Okay, so apparently you can find that video on YouTube, it looked like. Go look at that for yourself. That was very interesting, short and chaotic. You know, we've talked a lot about improvised weapons before. Man, that...
Hey, I said handy-dandy self-defense shark.
You did. You did when we talked about...
But that's an alligator, so...
Yeah. All right, so we're going to look at the use of force continuum, or the ladder of force, or use of force ladder. I've heard all kinds of different... I've even heard the use of force, like, color code now. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to lie. I guess there's a color for each one of these things. But, yes.
So you're telling me that courts want you to keep it at the exact same level of force?
Yeah, that's
How does that make
and that's on
sense?
average going throughout the country. So, you know, there's...
If you're attacked, and...
There's going to have to be some leeway here and there, okay? And this is going to change the way we're teaching our classes. This is just the most recent research that I've been doing. It's just showing that the courts are more wanting, instead of what I was taught when we were doing this stuff, and when I was doing like combative stuff, and when I did firearms training and stuff like that, what I was taught was that you can step one higher level than what they are stepping. That's the way I was always taught. apparently that's not so much the case. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the levels, okay? And then we're just kind of go from there. And we could talk about each level and maybe where it would work, where it wouldn't work, all of these things. And, okay, the first level is presence, is just your being there, okay? So if maybe that's not really going to do anything if I'm the intended victim, but it is going, well, yeah, it kind of would, because if my presence, if the attitude that I'm giving off is something that is not going to be an easy victim, then that helps. So if you want to look at presence that way as an actual act. But the other thing would be like a presence as in like somebody's going to steal something, or let's say there's a dark alley and there's some dude you are his intended victim. My presence may stop that. That would be the first level.
Use of force being presence would be the equivalent of like a security guard in a lot of areas.
Yeah,
when
security
nothing's
guards.
going on, you know.
Yeah, security guards, and just the way you carry yourself and handle yourself, that kind of stuff. That kind of would be the first one. So,
I guess a good example of that would be like the lady who is coming up to everybody's cars and asking them for something, and all I did was make eye contact and like give her a look, and she stayed away from my car. But when I was leaving, she was halfway in someone else's vehicle screaming at them. So I guess that's just a use of presence.
Your RBF just chased them away.
Yeah, RBF is a great defense mechanism. I'm telling you. No, I accredit RBF to a lot of the people that are scared of me currently. Like, I found out that my younger siblings, who are now 17, and their friend is probably 17, their friend is still scared of me from a look I gave him 3 years ago, because he made a derogatory comment about something, like not even like relating to me, just made a derogatory comment, and I turned and looked at him. And yeah, apparently he's still scared of me just off of the one look. I never said a word.
Oh, that's awesome. So your presence. All right.
Fighting disjustice with RBF. Injustice.
Whatever works.
Yeah, words.
Speaking of words, level 2 would be verbal. So verbal can be verbal de-escalate, or is verbal de-escalation. I understand that verbal de-escalation is not always the calm the situation down.
Sometimes it's, if you do not turn around,
Yes.
I am going to screw you up.
Yeah.
Walk away now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the intimidation.
Yeah, and sometimes, now you have to be able to read the room.
Yes.
In order to use this, okay? If you cannot, if you're one, you know, there
you
are
have to
people.
recognize your personal abilities and your personal.
Well, no, but also you have to be able to read the people.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to be honest about your ability to read a room.
Yeah.
Like, if you commonly aren't cued in when it comes to nonverbal signals and things like that, if you are not. If you don't pick up on things easily.
Yeah, there are some people who just cannot do that. I have people very close to me that have trouble picking up and just reading the room. And sometimes you just kind of have to pull them aside and say something to them. So that's, if you're that person, maybe you want to constantly default to de-escalation in the mode of trying to calm the situation down. Because otherwise you may read it wrong and all of a sudden get jumped by 5 guys. You know what I'm saying?
No, we're in agreement on that, because if you pick up on something wrong and you think it's an intimidation thing, it's going to end a whole lot worse than if you read it wrong and it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, you can always de-escalate by calming down. That is actually a lot easier and really the only one we teach most of the time until I feel like people are at a much, much higher level of understanding. Let's look at this. Okay, presence, we've already talked about that. Verbal de-escalation skills, be it calming down or intimidation or anything like that. That would, if their attack is verbal, I'm fully agree. I don't think their attack is verbal. You don't need to hit them. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, if their attack is verbal, but it's here's where I might would disagree with this at this level. I'm up against a wall and there's 3 guys around me and they're telling me how they are going to, beat me, rob me, whatever. Probably not rob me, but I mean, they're telling me they're going to beat me. They're going to do and I think, oh, they're really, really going to commit some type of physical act of violence. Then I think that would probably fall under the be okay. I tell you, I'm going to hit them.
I think a court of reasonable persons would agree with you.
Yes, but we just heard that the research is showing now that they really want more equal level. But
I think 3 guys against 1 dude.
Yeah, that's a bit different.
I think
what we always tell our students is basically a preemptive strike is okay as long as the person is bigger than you. Well, okay, first off, the threat of violence is imminent. That's not the way I tell children, but it's coming. You're pretty sure they're going to hit you, they're going to hurt you, they're going to do something. Okay, the threat of violence is imminent, and they are bigger than you, or there's more of them. So it has to hit at least 2 of those in order for it to be a justified thing, at least as a self-defense instructor. Now, I can't guarantee courts, but I can guarantee one thing. If I'm in that situation, I'm going to hit somebody before I take off,
You've just got to decide that your physical well-being is more important to you than...
Yeah, but again, I agree with you in the fact that I do believe that in most court settings, a reasonable jury is going to look and go, like, yeah, that makes sense.
But how many reasonable juries do we have?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're running up against more and more of those. But
I think
anyway,
a big part of the problem is that most people don't realize how violence actually occurs.
Yeah.
And so it makes it...
No, we've learned that more and more just by teaching seminars and teaching concealed carry classes, because everybody comes in there to concealed carry classes thinking one of 2 things. Or actually, no, take that back. Most people that come take concealed carry classes think 2 things. Number 1, they think they're already John Wick. Number 2, they think they understand that how violence works and that they are going to be able to pull a gun out of their pocket and solve all of the problems. That is the problem in most of these cases. Now, I'm pretty sure that most concealed carry instructors do not understand that everybody is not John Wick. But unfortunately, there are many, many concealed carry instructors who do think that just that gun is still good enough. That's all you need. And I think that, well, again, that's why we got into it. All right, the next level will be soft hands. Okay?
Come on, buddy. We're just going to leave this place.
Yeah, guiding, up to like pushing.
It's like, you don't need to be here. Get out of here.
Yeah. Basically, almost anything before actually hitting someone would be soft hands. So that whole just, pushing, guiding, whatever, manipulating a little bit maybe. That might it depends on what you're manipulating. If you're small joint manipulations, that might be different. I don't know. Grabbing somebody's finger and yanking it, I don't know. Maybe not to go so well. But anyway, soft hands. Yeah, if somebody's pushing me, I agree with that probably. But if you take that and you add that to the fact that, maybe they are threatening you, threatening your life, threatening whatever, and they're putting hands on you, you can probably hit them and kind of jump up. But again, we can't guarantee anything, unfortunately. But I don't have a whole lot of disagreement with that. If somebody's just pushing you and you can, well, freaking leave for one thing. I mean, we've talked about it before. The very first avenue is escape every freaking time. So, you have anything to add to soft hands?
Learn some escort grabs. Those are fun. If you're gonna have to use soft hands, at least make it.
Yeah, so you're talking about the escort grabs. So, we were talking about. I've taught those for years.
You might want to give a tiny explanation.
I'm
of
going
what
to.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's basically grabbing someone in such a way where it gives some pain compliance that you can move them. Okay, there are several different versions and several different ways. I have my favorite, and it's that whole gooseneck thing, and you kind of lock somebody's elbow up, and then you fold their fingers toward their forearm on the bottom, so you have this gooseneck kind of lock, and you're standing there beside of them. To everyone else in the room, it doesn't look bad at all, but to the person in that position, it can be very, very painful. I have a student.
But not maiming.
No, not maiming.
So
it's
just
pain compliance.
Yeah, it creates pain in the wrist and up the arm, so that whenever they try to struggle or move away, you can really quickly put more pressure on it, and they really quickly stop trying.
So one of my guys, he was with me for a very long time. He moved away. He became a police officer. I do want to try to have him on the podcast sometimes. It would be a lot of fun, I believe. So anyway, he came back and he was telling me, he says, "Oh yeah, Brian, you won't believe I got to use the escort lock," which is what we called it, and he was telling about a guy he had to remove from a courthouse, and the guy just was being a real butt, and he was trying to remove him, and he said, "I tried everything I could to peacefully remove him," and they obviously don't want them to hit anyone in a courthouse, and I don't blame them, and he doesn't want to. He's one of the guys that I think he's perfectly suited to be a police officer. I can't think of a more perfect person to be a police officer than this guy. Anyway, he grabbed the guy's arm and he folded it up, had him locked up before he realized what was going on. He says, "Okay, now we're going to step outside and you're going to go on. Do you understand?" And the guy suddenly was very compliant, and he was willing to go right outside with him. He said it only took him a couple times squeezing his wrist just a little bit. And the guy's like, "Oh, okay." So he escorted him right outside, and he said, "Go on."
Get on there, little guy.
All right.
Sorry. That's what I can think of whenever.
Yeah, because he's no
it's
small
soft.
guy, So he's larger than the average adult by a decent bit. That's probably very much so.
Whenever I think of use of soft hands and putting someone in one of those locks, pushing them out of an event, all I can think of is just that image of the petty criminals and stuff from sitcoms,
Oh yeah.
And I just get that image. I know that's not how it works, but it's funny to imagine.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, the next one would be hard hands. Hard hands is punches, strikes, punches, kicks, knees, elbows, anything at that point in time when you are hitting someone. So striking. I think now is that point where it starts to get harder to constantly agree, because if you're only allowed to strike or physically fight, strike, grapple, throw, whatever, and the other person is a more gifted striker, then don't you need some type of equalizer, like some type of non-lethal tool?
Or a small woman against a large grown man.
Yeah, and I'm probably making too much over the fact that the research is showing that they want it on more of an equal level. Okay, but if
there is a misunderstanding with anyone in the court, that becomes a problem.
Yeah.
It depends on what you consider equal footing. If you are talking about levels of force and you want only hard hands against hard hands, or soft hands against soft hands, or words against words, it can't be always fair.
Yeah.
It can't. And it sounds fair when you say it, but it's not when you consider the differences in people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just going to say, if you and me were in a fight, that's not, and we were both only using hard hands, my hard hands is a whole lot different than your hard hands, and that is not equal footing.
Are you saying you would kick my butt?
No. The opposite. There has to be more of a force equalizer in that sense, and it can't just be the words are equal or the hands are, it's not. That's where our problem comes in.
Yeah. And I think it's going to really determine, or it really depend on the jury in most of these cases. But yeah, when you're striking, if you are completely outgunned in your striking, in your fight, you have got to do something to kind of equalize. Something, a force multiplier. So now, does that mean that you're in a non-lethal type of situation? You're maybe in a fight and the other person is winning, but there is no threat of death, great bodily harm, or rape. Can you just whip that gun out or knife out or something that is a lethal tool? No, you cannot. Now,
Well, that falls under use of deadly force. So.
Yes, that's deadly force. So we're not quite there yet.
And I think my mind separates use of deadly force and then use of other forms of force.
So if I pull the gun out but I don't use it, then, or if you pull the gun out and you don't use it, yeah, it's potentially deadly. Yeah, under the exact laws, whatever, people could possibly get in trouble. But do they? Actually, no, statistically. Most of the time, if you just kind of pull that gun out in that situation and it ends the situation and that's it, all that ever happens, then good. But if it can change and it can go bad for you as well. So I don't think it's the best option.
Just like one thing I'm thinking about is, let's say that there is a domestic abuse situation or something like that, and in this case it would be the husband or boyfriend versus the wife or girlfriend, and he is being abusive, and there's not the necessarily threat of death or any of those other things, but he is beating her for the sake of beating her. Would it then be wrong for her to pick up the hammer or mallet that's laying beside her as she's being beaten and hit him with it to get him off of her?
It depends on what you're asking. Are you asking what's legal, or are you asking what my opinion is? If it's legal, I really don't know, and it's going to come down to that jury. If it's my opinion, I don't have very good. I don't have a whole lot of. I can't think of
This is just
the
what
right
I'm
to say.
saying to get people thinking. Oh,
Yeah.
that what they think of as equal footing is not actually equal footing when you
Right.
get down to the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah.
Because if she's just using her hands against his, it's not a fair fight,
Yeah. No.
generally speaking.
I would agree. Okay, so now looking into the next level, which would be less than lethal tools. Something like an OC spray, pepper spray, some type of Kubotan, something like that would be less than lethal.
So after hard hands is...
After hard hands would
is
be less than
non-lethal.
lethal
Yeah, okay.
tools. So that's when you would pull out some type of thing. And
Now, would
there's
a hammer categorize as lethal or less than lethal, or does it depend on
probably depends
how
on
it's
how you're
used in
using
that
it.
situation? Okay. I'm sorry. I'm watching a TV show and a hammer was used in self-defense, and
okay.
so I don't know. Hammer's on my mind.
Did you see the one, and I'm way off subject a little bit, did you see the thing where the guy's trying to break into somebody's house and there's like a mail slot, and he sticks his arm in the mail slot and is reaching for the doorknob, and the homeowner comes up and he's got a hammer or something in his hand, he goes, whack, and hits the guy's arm. And then you just hear the guy scream, "Ah!" Yeah, there was a law you're talking about. Is that legal? Is it not legal?
Bro, yeah,
Is it
on
stuff
TikTok,
yeah,
that guy?
Yeah, that guy. I like that guy.
He's funny.
He was like, "Yep, that's actually legal." Now, a lot of these things come down to juries, so there's the rub on a lot of this. But
I know, it's like listening. He will sometimes insert his opinion afterwards. But he is a defense attorney, so it's like, despite how creepy that may be.
if I could remember his name, I would say it on the podcast here, but I can't remember his name. But anyway, there's a defense attorney on TikTok that is that runs through a lot of these things, and actually, it's rather educational and entertaining.
I would love to watch him in court. I'm not gonna lie.
I would imagine he would be very professional and not nearly as entertaining in court.
No, I know.
Okay.
But he would also have to. You also need charisma to work in that because you've got to convince a jury.
Yeah.
And well, as much as I would love it to be just straight facts, charisma does play a part in it.
It does. It does.
For the better or worse, of it. But I'd imagine he would still be very interesting to watch in court. And law's always interested me, but law school has not.
Oh, to an extent, sometimes. But, when you're reading the written law, a lot of times that gets on my nerves so bad.
By law, I mean application.
Yeah. I like stuff like that. I can sit there and watch his videos a lot.
I could never be a lawyer or a defense attorney just because if I don't fully believe my client, I would never be able to defend them.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to have a certain level of being able to do that and trusting the justice system to be able to do that. And I'm not downing anybody who does, but I don't enough to be able to do that.
So I was kind of talking about less than lethal tools. There was an officer who says if you carry a gun, and he's a retired officer, he says if you carry a gun, carry pepper spray also. This was his thing. He said, as a police officer, he went in his entire career, he never shot anybody. He says, but man, he said, I pepper sprayed a lot of people. And he said, there's a lot of situations that are called for pepper spray that are just not called for a gun. And I wish we could get more people to understand that as well. All right, and now we move into deadly force. Deadly force. Gun, knife, anything deadly. A hammer to the head, anything not anything can be deadly force, but a lot of things can be. Baseball bats can be. Hammers can be. There's all these things that can be deadly force. You have to be careful when just saying. I think it's the force in which can possibly cause death. That is deadly force.
Use of deadly force falls under 3 different categories. 3 different situations make it okay to use deadly force according to the law. And that would be you firmly believe that you are either going to be maimed, so extreme bodily harm that will cause lasting, possibly lifetime damage.
Yeah.
That would be maiming. Or threat of death, which would definitely call for use of deadly force. And then the last one is labeled sexually assault, but what it actually
that's North Carolina law. You can't just
sexual assault.
That's
just North Carolina law.
That's basically North Carolina. That's the way North Carolina law states it. But if we're looking at overall, it depends on the state. And every one of these situations depend on the state. The state laws are different. The way we look at it in North Carolina is threat of maiming, great bodily harm. No, that is the same thing. Sorry, threat of great bodily harm, death, or rape.
Yeah,
we can't guarantee that is the same in every state and every country. Mm-hmm. And we have people that listen to this in several different states, and we have people that listen to this in several different countries. So we can't exactly say.
We do need to preface this with we can only tell you what our law says.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to do the research on what your state or what your country allows.
Yeah.
For instance, in
some people live in places where deadly force is not an option at all.
Like Canada, they don't allow you any kind of deadly force, but you're not allowed to really carry any tool for self-defense.
No, you're not.
So not even pepper spray or anything like that, which is absolutely stupid. But
because
not
criminals
to insult an entire country, but I'm insulting an entire country.
Well, no, it's the bureaucracy there that's actually keeping people from being able to defend themselves. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But as
It's-
far as where we go, the law labels it sexual assault, but they mean rape.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't use deadly force if someone comes up and, like, slaps you on the butt.
Yeah.
You can deck them.
And you should.
Yeah, you really should.
We say that constantly, all the time, to all of our classes. All right, guys. So basically, this has just been an overview of that use of force continuum or use of force ladder. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you have learned something. And as we are moving forward here, don't forget our sponsor, our new sponsor, faithandfreedomclothing.com. And after, I guess, you can only use their coupon code that's a new customer once. Every time after that, though, you can use Impact Defense to get yourself 20% or 25% off of anything they have in the store.
So that use of deadly force ladder is presence, words. What is it actually? Yeah, I'll use the actual words for it instead of just my interpretation. Yeah. So presence, verbal de-escalation, words, soft hands, hard hands, less than lethal weapons, i.e. pepper spray, and then lethal force. So there's your escalation ladder.
Yep. And also, if you've enjoyed the podcast, if you continue to enjoy the podcast, please go over to Apple Podcasts, rate us and review us, and any 5-star reviews we do try to read on the episode. We hadn't read them in a couple times, to be honest with you. I've been out of town teaching, and I haven't looked before recording this one, so I'm not really sure if we have any new ones or not, but we will catch up on the next one. Thank you guys so very much for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Impact Defense Podcast. If you would like to learn more about how to keep yourself safe, check out the articles, videos, courses, and seminars at www.impactdefense.online. We also do training for security teams, churches, businesses, groups, and more. Stay sharp, stay focused, and train hard.